Meghan Markle's hands trembled as she read Prince William's secret decree. The Duchess of Sussex had been blocked from every crown residence in Britain. She had expected resistance when she asked to return with Harry and their children, but she never imagined the future king had quietly closed Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Kensington Palace, and every other royal home to her. Once a working royal, with a cottage near the Queen, Meghan was now shattered to discover that William's order treated her like a permanent outsider. But the decree carried an even more disturbing secret. It had been prepared weeks before Meghan requested accommodation. How did William know she was planning to return? Who gave him the authority to enforce the decree? And what hidden clause made Meghan its most devastating target? At 5:42 in the morning, Meghan's phone vibrated across the bedside table in Montecito. She almost ignored it. Then she saw the sender, Office of the Private Secretary to His Majesty. For 3 days, she and Harry had been waiting for confirmation that a secure cottage near Windsor had been approved for their visit to Britain. Harry was scheduled to speak at the Diana Legacy Forum in London, a gathering of charities once supported by his mother. Charles had privately asked whether Archie and Lilibet could come too. Meghan had agreed, but only if the children could stay somewhere protected from cameras and strangers. A hotel could expose their movements. An isolated rental would require an enormous security operation. A cottage inside Windsor's perimeter seemed practical, and, although Meghan never admitted it aloud, meaningful. She opened the message. The first paragraph acknowledged their request. The second rejected it. No accommodation within Windsor Castle, Kensington Palace, St. James's Palace, Buckingham Palace, or any other occupied royal residence would be made available to her. If she traveled, she would have to remain in privately secured commercial accommodation. The final sentence froze her. This determination applies across the entire residential portfolio and is not subject to local reconsideration. Meghan sat upright. This was not a scheduling
Out of
problem.
nowhere.
Someone
No
had
messenger,
closed
no
every
courier,
door simultaneously.
No trace. It was just
Harry
there,
stirred beside
slipped
her.
inside a
What
plain
happened?
envelope and left right on
She
Prince
handed
William's
him the
private
phone.
desk.
He read without moving, but she noticed his jaw tighten at the document's reference number, WR17. 2 initials appeared beneath it, WC. Your father didn't write this, Meghan said.
Nothing
Harry
to hint at who
remained
sent
silent.
it. Inside that tiny
William?
drive were detailed
He lowered
files
the
exposing
phone.
a shocking
That's
plan
what it looks
said
like.
to have been in motion
For a
nearly
moment,
18
Meghan
months.
heard nothing
The report
except the
claimed
faint
Meghan
hum
had
of the air conditioner. She had prepared herself for awkward conversations, hostile headlines, even a refusal from one household. But this felt
7:53
organized,
a.m. sharp,
permanent.
and instantly
Can
spotted
he
that
do this?
cream-colored envelope with
Not
his
alone.
name.
That answer frightened her more than a simple no. If William had written the order but lacked the authority to enforce it, someone with greater authority had approved it. Charles. Meghan walked to the window. Outside, the garden was beginning to brighten, peaceful and indifferent. She remembered arriving at Frogmore Cottage as a newlywed, standing among unopened boxes while Harry promised they finally had a home. For one brief season, she had believed those
The Prince
walls
of
meant
Wales
belonging.
has shown us he's
Now
not just
even
a
the
future
possibility
king.
of returning
He's a
had been
devoted and
removed.
loving dad.
Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from a former palace employee Harry still trusted. Do not respond publicly. The request was not the beginning. William drafted WR17 weeks before you applied. Meghan read it twice. If the decree existed before they asked for accommodation, then William had either anticipated their return, or he had been preparing for something much larger. She turned to Harry. Find out what WR17 is, she said, and find out why your brother knew we were coming before we did. This time, she would not accept another carefully worded refusal. The morning light spread across the Sussex's expansive Montecito estate, touching tall windows, landscaped gardens, and rooms far removed from the narrow corridors of palace life. Meghan was no powerless exile. She was the Duchess of Sussex, a wealthy public figure whose media ventures and international connections gave her a platform few royals possessed. But money could purchase privacy, influence, and magnificent homes. It could not reopen a door guarded by centuries of protocol. Harry stood behind her, barefoot and silent. He remained a prince by birth, the king's younger son and William's only brother, but his status had become painfully divided. In California, he controlled his own life. In Britain, every corridor carried memories of Diana, childhood, duty, and the brother who now stood between him and the institution that raised them. Across the Atlantic, dawn had not yet reached Windsor. William sat alone beneath the muted glow of a desk lamp, surrounded by inherited paintings and sealed household files. As Prince of Wales and heir to the throne, he possessed extraordinary privilege and income connected to the Duchy of Cornwall. Yet the palaces were not simply his private wealth to distribute. They belonged to the machinery of the monarchy, and only the sovereign could authorize a policy covering them all. Catherine paused at the office door. The Princess of Wales had watched William carry the burden of succession with increasing seriousness, but the locked folder before him troubled her. "If WR-17 reaches them without an explanation," she said, "they will believe it was created to punish Meghan." "An explanation becomes a negotiation," William replied. "And what happens to the children?" William's expression shifted, but only briefly. On the desk rested the final page of WR-17.
Out of nowhere.
His initials
No
appeared
messenger,
at the bottom,
no courier,
but another
no
space
trace.
contained the
It
signature
was
that
just
gave
there,
the decree its
slipped
authority.
inside a plain envelope
Charles
and
had
left
signed
right
it.
on Prince William's
Catherine
private
saw
desk.
William close the folder before she could read the final clause. That hidden clause was the reason Meghan's name would never appear in the decree, and the reason it could still close every crown residence against her. 3 weeks earlier,
Nothing to
William
hint at
had
who
entered
sent it.
Windsor's security
Inside that tiny
office,
drive were
expecting a
detailed files
routine
exposing
briefing.
a shocking plan,
Instead,
said to have
a
been in
red
motion
folder
for nearly
waited beside
18
photographs of
The report
temporary
claimed
access
Meghan had
cards issued to royal relatives, private guests, and former staff. These passes were approved by different households. The security director explained.
7:53 a.m.
Some
sharp,
permit overnight
and instantly
access,
spotted that
others do
cream-colored
not.
envelope with
There
his
is no
name.
single rule for former working royals. William studied the cards. One careless decision could expose private apartments, official papers, or the movements of the king. Yet refusing access after previously granting it could look like personal revenge. The danger was not an intruder climbing a wall. It was uncertainty already living inside the system. That evening, William remembered childhood weekends, when Windsor had felt less like a fortress than a family
The Prince of
home.
Wales has shown us he's
Diana
not
would
just a
lower her
future
voice
king.
near staff
He's a
corridors,
devoted and loving
reminding
dad.
her sons that palaces had ears. Years later, after her death, those same rooms became symbols of everything William was expected to preserve. Now he was heir to the throne, custodian of the Duchy of Cornwall's income and estates, and father to the next generation. But his wealth could not protect the monarchy from rules that changed according to emotion. He began drafting WR-17. The directive required every residential request to satisfy 4 conditions: official purpose, security necessity, authorized cost, and a clear separation between royal duty and commercial activity. Former working royals would receive no automatic accommodation. Their spouses would possess no independent residential privilege. When Catherine read the draft, she stopped at that sentence. "This will be understood as Meghan's clause. Her name is nowhere in it," William replied. "Names are not required when everyone recognizes the description." William closed his pen. "If I remove it because they may object, then personal pressure has already defeated the policy." Catherine looked toward the dark window. "Protect the institution, William. but leave a path back for the family. Her warning followed him to Buckingham Palace, where Charles received the proposal in his private study. The king appeared smaller behind the desk, surrounded by priceless paintings that belonged to the crown rather than to the man beneath it. Charles read the pages. "Harry will see this as another punishment," he said. "It applies to everyone. Rules can be general and still wound one person most deeply." William did not deny it. He argued that postponing the directive would be worse. If a controversial request arrived first, any later policy would appear retaliatory. Charles stared at the signature line. He wanted his grandchildren near him, but he also knew affection could not remain the monarchy's only operating system. He signed. "Family meetings must remain possible," Charles insisted. William added an exception for entry by the sovereign's personal invitation, but not automatic overnight residence. WR-17 was sealed. 12 days later, a household secretary placed a new file on William's desk. The label read, "Sussex Accommodation Request." William opened it and saw 4 names: Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet. Catherine's warning returned immediately. The rule had
Out of
found its
nowhere.
first family.
No messenger.
William
no
read
courier,
the Sussex
no
request
trace.
twice.
It was just there.
Harry wanted
Slipped
4
inside a
nights
plain
near
envelope
Windsor,
and left right on
arguing
Prince
that its
William's
protected
private desk.
perimeter would keep Archie and Lilibet away from photographers. The application did not demand Frogmore Cottage. It asked for any suitable residence. That restraint made refusal harder. Catherine stood across from William
Nothing to
as
hint at
morning
who
light
sent it.
filled his office.
Inside that tiny drive
"They are
were
bringing the
detailed
children
files
because
exposing
your
a
father
shocking
asked,"
plan, said to
she
have been
said.
in motion for
"Surely
nearly
that
18
changes
months.
the calculation.
The report claimed Meghan had
It changes the emotion, not the rule. Then use the king's exception." William shook his head. "They may enter for a meeting if father invites them. They cannot
7:53
stay
a.m.
overnight.
sharp, and
If the first
instantly spotted that
application defeats
cream-colored envelope with his name.
WR-17, every future decision becomes another family negotiation. He approved a compromise. The Sussexes could attend specifically authorized gatherings, but their accommodation must remain outside the occupied palaces. A vetted private property would be offered, with security coordinated at their expense. Charles considered granting a personal exception. William warned that doing so would create the very precedent the directive was written to prevent. The rejection was sent.
The Prince
In
of
Montecito,
Wales has shown us
Harry
he's
spent
not just a
hours
future
calling
king.
palace
He's
offices.
a devoted
Polite
and loving
voices
dad.
transferred him between secretaries who repeated identical phrases. And Meghan watched his frustration sharpen into something older. The helpless anger of a younger son who had grown up surrounded by privilege but rarely control. Finally, Harry reached his father's senior aide. "Was WR-17 written for my wife? The directive applies to all former working royals." "That wasn't my question." After a pause, the aide sent him a summary. Meghan's name appeared nowhere in the directive. For several seconds, relief crossed her face. Then Harry opened the implementation note, attached after their application arrived. The Sussex request must not establish a conflicting precedent. Meghan's relief vanished. "So William may not have created it for me," she whispered, "but he chose me to prove it." Her communications advisor joined them by encrypted video. She recommended immediate retaliation, reveal the decree, accuse William of separating children from their heritage, and force the palace to defend itself publicly. "The headline writes itself," the advisor said. "The future king closes every royal home to his brother's family." Meghan looked toward Harry. "Perhaps people should know." Harry placed the implementation note on the table. "If we leak a confidential security policy, William will say we proved why he wrote it." The truth struck with cruel precision. Speaking might damage William, but it could also validate his distrust. Silence would leave the decree untouched. Meghan began drafting a statement anyway. Her first sentence accused William of turning personal hostility into institutional policy. Her second described what it would mean for Archie and Lilibet. Before she finished the third, her phone rang. The screen displayed a blocked British number. Harry recognized it. "It's my father." Meghan stared at the unfinished accusation, then answered. Charles did not greet her through an aide. "Meghan," the king said quietly, "William wrote the decree, but I was the one who gave it power. And what I must tell you next may end everything." Charles's confession left Meghan gripping the phone. "Did you approve it because it was right?" she asked. "Or because you are preparing William to replace you?" The king exhaled. "The monarchy," he explained, "needed rules that could survive affection, anger, and changing reigns. WR17 did not forbid Meghan from Britain or prevent an invitation to a royal event. It denied her automatic residential
nowhere.
access.
No messenger,
When a rule closes
no courier,
every home
no
connected to
trace.
my husband's
It was
childhood,
just there,
Meghan
slipped
said,
inside a
it
plain
becomes
envelope
personal.
and left right on
Charles
Prince William's
offered a
private
private
desk.
meeting at a secure country property outside the palace system. The whole family could attend without cameras or announcements. That compromise shattered her more than rejection. Charles still welcomed her as family, but the crown
Nothing to hint
recognized
at
her
who sent
only
it.
as an invited
Inside that
outsider.
tiny drive were
"I am
detailed
trying
files
to
exposing a
preserve what
shocking plan,
remains,"
said to have been
Charles
in motion
whispered.
for nearly 18
"William
months.
is preserving the
report
crown,"
claimed Meghan had
replied. "Those are no longer the same thing." She ended the call before her voice broke. Her advisor urged her to release the accusation already glowing on her
7:53 a.m.
screen.
sharp.
Harry
and
read
instantly
it,
spotted
then
that
asked one
cream-colored
question.
envelope with his
"Do you
name.
want to win the headline, or do you want our children to see their grandfather?" Meghan stared at Archie and Lilibet's photograph. Slowly, she deleted the statement. Her public explanation would mention only security complications. Harry would attend the Diana Legacy Forum alone. But 2 days later, part of WR17 leaked. Headlines declared that William had banned Meghan from every crown residence. William suspected the Sussex camp. Meghan suspected palace
The
officials.
Prince of Wales has
Neither
shown
could
us
prove
he's
anything,
not just a future
and distrust
king.
consumed
He's a
the
devoted
silence.
and loving
After
dad.
the London Forum, Harry met William privately at Windsor. "You turned family rejection into policy," Harry said. "I removed an assumption," William replied. "Marriage does not grant permanent access to the institution." She asked for 4 safe nights. 4 nights become the precedent in every future dispute. Harry stepped closer. "You protected every building except the family meant to live inside them." William had no answer. Days later in Montecito, a handwritten letter arrived from Charles. He invited Meghan, Harry, and the children to meet him privately during summer. Attached was a formal notice confirming that WR17 remained in force. There would be no Windsor cottage, palace apartment, or exception for Meghan. She accepted Charles's invitation for her children's sake. Then she entered her study and found an old photograph taken outside Frogmore Cottage. Her younger self stood beside Harry, smiling among moving boxes, convinced they had finally found a home. She remembered the first night there, when Harry promised that no matter how loud the world became, those walls would protect their young family forever. Meghan placed the photograph inside a drawer. At Windsor, Catherine watched William lock WR17 inside a household cabinet. "Will it remain forever?" she asked. "Rules matter only when they survive the people who dislike them." Across an ocean, Meghan closed the drawer and understood the decree's final cruelty. William had not closed a door for one visit. He had closed it for the future.